in their lanes to be able to just shut down enemy jungles. And even if you're able to find picks and kills, it doesn't matter because you're just denied so much farm and experience. So we'll see how things shift. Already, we're seeing the Evelynn taken away from Selfmade, the Lucian taken away from Nemesis, and I think that this is expected considering where Fnatic have found so much success, both in the playoffs and yesterday against TSM.
Yeah, we'll see the Renekton removed here from the pool as well. Langxing's not going to get it. Shen taken away as well. It's a little bit surprising. Bwipo isn't the biggest Shen player in the world, but of course gives you some flexibility. You could see Hylissang taking that down into the support role, or we did see jungle Shen a little bit over in NA as well.
I definitely think that was much more focused towards top side of the map. I know that Shen, I think Shen is a very European thing, at least towards the top side of the map. We've been playing it a lot. And I think that with the Renekton ban away, they're like, nope, we don't want to afford to give that away. Of course, the Ornn is going to be left up and available. Camille is up though, so I wouldn't be surprised to see them lock in that Camille to give Bwipo a favorable matchup. Of course, they don't have to lock it in now if they don't want to. Instead, they can prioritize other things. As you can see, Bwipo's happy, smiling face on your screen right now as he hovers over his, as he often does, the Kai'Sa in the champion select.
I do think the Nidalee is an option here for Selfmade. It's the power pick of the tournament so far, has done such an incredible job, and instead it's going to be Graves for Selfmade. It was his most played across the course of summer. Didn't have the best of performances on it though. I believe he was actually a 0% win rate in the LEC on the Graves. Which is obviously not the most indicative of what his Worlds performance could be like.
But I was going to say that one of the big question marks around Fnatic is how well do they play with the Nidalee, because it's not really something that they've showcased a lot of. They didn't play it once during the playoffs. It's not something that they usually go towards. And it does give that option over to Peanut. When you look at his champion pool, he does really like things like the Kindred. He also is a big fan of the Nidalee as well. Usually it's taken away from him, but he is instead going to stick to what he knows well. It is going to be the Kindred and the Echo coming in from Xie. So this is exciting. We're going to get to see another LPL Echo come out, and this time in the hands of Xie.
And it's in the same counter matchup. Echo into Syndra is a well-known matchup for the Echo. You can use the Chrono Break as soon as the Syndra uses her Unleashed Power and kind of just negate her ultimate for your ultimate.
Yes, you certainly can. Now, the big brain play here from Fnatic is putting the Syndra bot lane and putting another matchup in mid. I find that very unlikely, but it is a possibility as Thresh will get locked in for Hylissang. It is one of his most played champions. It is something that he is exceptionally comfortable on. And it looks like that Fnatic are going to go for comfort for the time being. Not actually going to lock in the Camille. Of course, GP is still up and available. It is one of Bwipo's best champions, and I'm sure that if he gets the opportunity, he will lock that one in.
And as much as it's not likely that Syndra goes down to bottom lane, like, Reckless on Syndra is something we've seen before. He's played it 2 times across the course of his career, is actually unkilled on the champion, so has an infinite KDA, and he also has played other mages. We saw him play Soraka, we saw him play Garen, who isn't really a mage, but these more eclectic bot lane picks. So although Reckless is known as an incredibly strong AD carry player, he has been willing to experiment when needed.
He certainly has. But we'll have to wait and see if that flexibility does come through. For now, LGD, they have a pretty solid and well-rounded comp in the sense that they have backline threat damage, they have good engage, they have decent scaling, given that they also have locked in the Kindred as well. Then I just have to round things out with their bot lane. And you can already see that Fnatic looking to pinch that role a little bit, will deny the Rakan away from Mark. Mark does often play a lot of Leona. I'm sure that Hylissang will be happy to play the Thresh into the Leona. Of course, that's already banned away, so he's not going to have that option available to him. A Bard is something that he's also gone towards. We've been seeing a lot of Bard today, so perhaps. But there's the GP ban coming out from LGD, showcasing that respect, and does give the potential for the Camille over to Fnatic. Will be a very squishy comp, so I do wonder if that will be the option.
Reckless instead going back towards his Jhin. We saw him play it yesterday. It's a champion he is incredibly well known for.
But I am surprised, largely because I think that one of the things Jhin does struggle against is tanks, and the later the game goes, he's going to struggle to get through this Ornn. And of course, they do have to pick something. They want to try and save the top lane pick for last, when I think they don't necessarily need to, but we'll have to wait and see what that pick actually ends up being, because now it's going to give LGD the opportunity to go for a pretty powerful bot lane matchup as they lock in the Misfortune. But of course, with the sport pool so pinched, perhaps they won't have as strong as a 2v2 as they would usually like.
One thing this does make me wonder about is something a little bit more surprising in the top lane, like a Jax, perhaps, who can get through those tanks and can be similar but scale up a bit better than a Camille would do in a side lane. So Nautilus is where Mark goes usually when he doesn't get the Leona. As you said earlier, the Bard was still an option, but the Nautilus gives you that little bit more engage. And now we'll see what Fnatic want to do in this top lane.
I think that LGD's comp is very well-rounded, and they're just going to actually go with the set. So, yeah, I have a couple question marks around Fnatic's draft, but we'll get to that in a second. For now, I want to focus in on LGD's comp because I think that it is very straightforward. You have a very solid front line. It's very easy to find engages with this comp. The one big thing that GA is going to have to look for is flanks. I think that Echo just running forward in a front-to-back team fight is not great. He wants to try and come in at an angle. He wants to use his dash to be able to dive onto the back line immediately, draw a bunch of pressure, and then use his ultimate to get out to safety, or potentially dish out a bunch of damage depending on how long the team fight actually is. Meanwhile, you have the double AD carries to help provide consistent DPS while the front line provides that protection. So LGD's comp pretty well-rounded, pretty easy to execute, very straightforward. They also have a couple of winning lane matchups. Meanwhile, Fnatic's composition, I think it's going to be a little bit harder for them to actually play the laning phase. I do think that they have priority in the top lane, but Syndra into Echo we already know can be a very challenging matchup, and it makes me wonder if we'll see a level 2 gank play, similar to what we saw from River and Tank earlier on in the day. So, yeah, we'll have to wait and see. I think the laning phase could be a little bit more difficult for the side of Fnatic, and if they do just get constantly pressured, then Kindred may have all this opportunity to just constantly invade and do what we've seen so much throughout the day. And
that's what Kindred really needs to be able to do, because your marks after the first couple are appearing in the enemy jungle. You need to be able to get in, get away some of those camps, and get yourself to that 4-mark threshold. That's when you really become a champion. You get all that extra range, you get all that extra damage as well, and you really, as a Kindred, you want to get those marks as soon as possible, because otherwise you can fall behind. It can be a lot more difficult for you to have an influence on the fight. Peanut, of course, knows that. He is a legacy Kindred player. Played it 14 times in summer, only lost 2 of those, I believe. Actually, might have been 3. Might have lost 3 of them. I'm trying to do the percentage math in my head while I just look at the screen. It's quite difficult.
He's played a lot of Kindred. He's pretty good at Kindred. He often defaults to Kindred.
80% win rate. There we go.
He's very, very good, that's for sure. And we'll see how he does in this matchup against Fnatic. Of course, this is a very important game. But when we talk about the context of the group, remember that because TSM have now lost to both Fnatic and Gen G, they are in a position where they definitely need LGD to lose here, as they are the only other team currently sitting at 0 wins. Meanwhile, Fnatic, if Fnatic can get a big win here, then they tie up with Gen G, and then it adds a lot more weight into that matchup when those two will be going up against each other later on this week. So, yeah, a lot of stakes already. Group stage is very important. Every game can have a lot of weight. And I think that from the perspective of Fnatic fans, if Fnatic get this win, even if they lose to Gen G, they're like, doesn't matter, we have week 2 still ahead of us. Like, Fnatic have an incredible record in week 2. I think they've only ever lost 1 game in the history of their World Championship runs. In any case, we're still in week 1. LGD, they had a very close game yesterday versus Gen G, and we'll see what they can do. I think they have a pretty solid draft. I think it's very straightforward. And I think it's pretty easy to execute, so we'll see how things play out as Fnatic go for the level 1.
Peanut's going to get spotted out. Selfmade just forces him away. GA coming in from the mid lane as well will just be able to cover for his jungler. Peanut will have to base, but with 30 seconds or so before the buffs come back up, he should be able to get back towards whichever of those blue or red that he wants to start off.
So we can see a couple of early wards dropped across the board for LGD. They've got 1 ward on their blue buff, 1 ward on the entrance to red, and 1 ward in this bot brush just outside of bot lane. So LGD kind of have the whole map covered to garner information on what Fnatic is up to, and they're going to realize, hey, Fnatic bot lane is trying to cheese us right now. We are not going to fall for that trap. They're clearly not pulling for their jungler, who, by the way, is running Ignite, as we have seen from Canyon earlier on in the day, and other Graves, of course, throughout this year.
Popularized in the LPL, I believe, originally, and now Selfmade has adopted it for his own. He'll start leashless on this blue buff, gives Hylissang and Reckless the opportunity to get into this lane and put a little bit of pressure down on Mark and Kramer, who are stepping forward. And from yesterday, watching Mark up against Gen G, I can tell you at least one thing about this support. He is not scared of a fight, Vedius. When he sees his opportunity to go in, he definitely will.
Well, fortunately for him, Hylissang shares a common trait.
Yep.
So I imagine that both Devorts will be looking for plays, and notice that Reckless and Hylissang will have that early push. Meanwhile, Peanut will be spotted on this ward as it gets cleared out almost immediately. So from red to blue into... so he waits a little bit because he doesn't want to give any information away, and because that like last bit of vision does actually see where they're moving, he kind of fakes these pathing up towards top, and it now puts this mental game pressure onto Bwipo. Is like, oh, Kindred could be pathing up towards top side right now. Got to be careful. Going to have to invest the ward that I don't have. So look at him walking into the river, just checking, seeing what's going on, and then going back to lane. He needs to get this shove out, and he also needs Selfmade to path up towards the top side of the map to help provide that additional cover, because the risk of a gank is very real, of course, from their perspective. Meanwhile, Peanut going to do his wolves, start pathing back towards bot side.
And the question for Peanut really is, where does that first mark spawn? Is it going to be on bot side Scuttle Crab or top side Scuttle Crab? Because if it's top side, he's probably not going to be able to get it. Selfmade currently is on the top side of the map doing his Razor Beaks. Bwipo has the push in the top lane. That top side Scuttle is Selfmade's all days of the week. The bottom side Scuttle, though, is definitely an option for Peanut. So if that mark is down there, he can get himself on the board and start stacking up towards that all-important point of 4 marks.
Certainly will be the case. Notice that I think Reckless and Hylissang actually...
Top side.
Oh, unlucky. Of course, the advantage is if he waits, I think the mark will actually spawn over onto the other one. So, but it looks like he's not going to do that. He's just going to secure that. Meanwhile, Selfmade looking for a dive in top lane. Longxing took a very bad trade, and now he's at risk of death. She does have the teleport, but the question is, will he use it? Oh, they're trying to TP away.
I mean, you take this every day of the week.
Yeah, you do. You definitely do. That is worth it for Bwipo, for sure, because while he doesn't have a CS advantage, that is going to be a plate going into the back pocket of Bwipo. He can also look for a back right now if he wants to. Meanwhile, Longxing is going to lose so much farm. Medic, yes, he gets away with his life, but it's like the best case. Well, actually, I wonder if that was even the best case. Is it better to die and then TP back into lane so you don't lose the farm?
The risk of dying and TPing back is, what if you die again?
But it's highly unlikely because he's full health on, right? So, and the wave will have died out and thinned out by then, which he could largely clear as well. So
we can do some rough maths. One plate is 160 gold, one minion wave is, say, 100, 120, so that's about 280 gold acquired. And the experience is also in there. But in terms of flat gold, I would say the TP out is slightly better, but only by about 100 gold or so.
Yeah. Well, I guess Longxing, from his perspective, he's like, you know what? I always knew that this was going to be the weak side of the map. The worst thing I can do is die and funnel like a lot of gold into Bwipo, because he's probably going to get those plates if he dies anyway, right? Or at least one plate, which means that he's like, okay, fine. I'm an ultimate bot anyway, later on to the game. It's all going to work out later. My value comes then. Meanwhile, on the bot side of the map, that's what really you have to keep your eyes on, because Kramer and Mark doing a great job in the 2 versus 2 for now. Meanwhile, Reckless and Hylissang staying relatively even, as we see a bit of bot lane trading. And I think Reckless and Hylissang may even try to set up a bit of a freeze here. No, they're just going to keep the push going. All right.
Yeah, pushes it back in. Selfmade was actually pinged out because there's a ward on his blue buff. So you could see that LGD knew where this jungler was. Didn't want to stay around the bot lane too long. Mark working his way towards the mid lane. Actually, once again going for these deep wards. And this is something that we are seeing supports do so much more and so well at the world stage, is going for these deeper wards, tracking the enemy jungler and really stopping that enemy jungler from being able to make too much of an impact on the map. You can see there's a control ward by the red buff of Fnatic. There's a control ward over by the wolves of Fnatic as well. And it just makes it so hard for this Graves to actually get anywhere on the map. And now Mark is down in the bottom lane, just autoing Hylissang. The double up's going to land as well. Hylissang's going to try and keep this wave outside of tower range, but it's going to be very hard to do with Mark and Kramer on the way.
Oh, I love this from LGD as well. Immediately garnering that information from the control ward that you were talking about, Medic, and being like, okay, we have the push in bot. Jin has gone back to base. He's spending his money. We can very quickly, with the mid-pro that we have as well, scoop up the first Ocean Dragon. So, nicely done. Oh, and look at that!
Perfect time.
Everything coming together for LGD. Beautifully played, but meanwhile, top side of the map, Longxing recognizes I'm weak side. He has to be very careful of a Mafia Graves looking to get a kill, but she actually pathing up towards the top side as well. I like this, using his prio to help cover and actually turn this potential dive around.
Bwipo going in with the showstopper. Longxing's going to get underneath the tower. Ignite is ticking down. Of course, Selfmade's taking that. Bwipo with the Haymaker tries to shield himself up and just about survives. GA still on the chase. Selfmade's going to try and keep him at bay. It was a well-executed tower dive from Fnatic.
Extremely well-executed. It does, of course, cost the flash from Bwipo, but they make it work, and this time around, they do get the kill. Bwipo still has his teleport, by the way. Longsheng had to use it earlier. He's going to lose even more farm, even more experience. And like, I think that's one of the biggest things that we saw. They knew that dive was safe because Longsheng was never going to hit 6 unless he was able to get all that farm that was stacking up. So they were able to make that play. Meanwhile, Fnatic's bot lane were able to push in. They do have a wave underneath the tower, which means that this will now look to bounce back. But also, Nemesis got a free reset here as Peanut may be looking for a play.
It's coming down towards the bottom lane. Mark with the oracles. Peanut now spotted out. Hylissang does still have the flash, so does Reckless. Hylissang decides not to flash early on. Deadly Flourish not going to connect onto Mark. Peanut puts some damage down. Hylissang trying to turn it around now as Kramer just wanders his way back to the minion wave. No summoners burnt, a little bit of HP exchanged.
All right, Bwipo doing what he often likes to do. When he has a lead, he really likes to try and keep the pressure up as much as possible. You'll notice that he's got an entire level on Longsheng right now, so this matchup is extremely difficult. Wouldn't be surprised to see that early Blade of the Ruin King come through for him. And this time around, I think like what we've been seeing a lot today, Medic, is like 3 losing lanes. Like I think we saw it from JDG, I think we saw it from Genji. Whereas this time, Fnatic kind of made a trade where they said, okay, we have a losing mid lane, we have a winning top side, but bot lane is actually very even. Based on their bans on the supports, they actually were able to get a reasonable bot side of the map. And what LGD haven't been able to do so far is use their mid prio to actually gain anything else off the back of it. Meanwhile, Fnatic are using their top prio to find a couple kills, actually put Longsheng behind, and that's what's resulting in this early game gold lead. So the question is, how will this translate? Because Jie is going to become a big threat the longer the game goes on. Of course, Bwipo will be able to itemize some magic resistance to make it easier. He can probably hold Jie. Will they ever kill each other? Probably not. But it will get to a point where he should probably be able to manage this Echo. And then Nemesis can start grouping up with his team and then offering that more team fight value. So I think the early game has definitely gone in the favor of Fnatic for the time being. And both junglers just continuing to scale and ramp up.
Mark has spawned on the bottom side scuttle once again here. Selfmade goes in, is going to start up the Rift Herald. At the moment, Nemesis has the push in the mid lane. And
I want to note where the supports are right now, because again, if we have a quick look at the minimap, you'll notice that the Hylissang roam straight through from mid all the way down towards the objective. Meanwhile, the bot lane has to rotate up through the river. So Fnatic initially have numbers advantage, but LGD's bot lane is on its way.
Stun's going to land here onto Peanut. Nemesis does have the Unleashed power, doesn't have too much AP yet. Here's the call of the Forge God. Selfmade secures the Rift Herald. Jie going in for Selfmade. Lantern gets him out. Jie dodging to the side of the collateral damage will keep himself alive, but Fnatic were able to get in, get the objective, and get out.
Wow, that was some finesse there from Fnatic, because they were playing on a knife's edge. But think about how much Fnatic just gained off the back of that. They got themselves the Rift Herald. They didn't die to any fight. They didn't lose a single member. Lo and behold, Reckless still sitting in the bot lane, losing absolutely nothing. He got 2 waves of farm. Kramer will not actually lose anything off the back of it, but Reckless also got a lot of solo experience too. So really advantageous for him. And the fact that Fnatic didn't get punished there was a really great situation, because 4v5, that could have been a huge teamfight swing for LGD.
Definitely could have been, and I will note that Kramer was able to pick up a couple of plates before that fight began. So as he wandered up, he did have a little bit of extra gold in his back pocket on his next back. Expect to see him upgrading that BF sword into something a little bit more mighty. Peanut got his 2nd stack off the Scuttle Crab, so he's halfway towards the 4-stack mark that we always talk about.
All right, so it's cool to see that the game hasn't been decided within the first 10 minutes, because we've had 2 kind of like very one-sided games. But now it looks like Fnatic and LGD kind of going toe-to-toe. Jie continuing to ramp up. Props to Nemesis in the 1 versus 1. I think that a lot of fans actually criticized him yesterday for his performance, but his early laning phase was very difficult, considering he lost his flash at level 1 versus Bjergsen, and then he lost half a wave as well. But in a matchup that is not favored for him, he's actually now ahead in CS. A large part of that was because Jie has been roaming around trying to assist his team, and he hasn't been able to get anything for it, whereas Nemesis is focused on farming in this 1 versus 1, and is actually at a CS advantage. So props to him in this matchup.
I will say as well, I quite like the Ionian Boots of Lucidity buy on him. It gives you that little bit extra cooldown reduction early on to spam out spells as he dodges away from the dredge line. Has to flash the wall to get away. Perhaps a little bit greedy in his pathing there down the river, but his ability to counter push the Echo with those extra dark spheres because of the cooldown reduction has definitely helped him gain some of that CS advantage.
Certainly has. Of course, as you mentioned, beautiful caster curse came in clutch right there as Nemesis forced the burn and splash. As you rightly said, his path was a little bit awkward as Mark was already in the river before Hylissang was. Now, Fnatic have their eyes set on the top side of the map, going to drop the Rift Herald and just funnel those resources even further into Bwipo's back pocket, and they've just accepted, okay, that's fine. We're going to concede another early Drake. Fnatic doesn't have a problem with that for the time being. Rekkles and Hylissang are going to have to play a little bit more defensive because they recognize that they don't have any control over the bot side of the map. But it's just been a trade of sides of the map for both these teams. LGD have been investing in these early Drakes. Meanwhile, Fnatic have been investing a lot into Bwipo, getting this early tower up towards top side. Now we have to see that come into fruition because he's going to be very prevalent. I don't know if you've ever met a Fed set.
A Fed set?
A Fed set.
I have been the Fed set.
Yes, but it is very difficult and obnoxious. You greatly underestimate how much he hurts, especially with the Blade of the Ruin King. And like, you just have to look at the gold right now on your screen. Selfmade has been farming up a Storm, actually significantly ahead of Peanut, largely because he's been benefiting off of some of those plates that he's been able to garner, and of course that one kill that he does have as well. So gold kind of where you expect it to be based on how Fnatic have drafted for themselves. And no major fights or no major swings either direction. Of course, Fnatic with the slight gold advantage. Doesn't really mean anything right now, because LGD's kind of power comes later on in the fights, right? I think that you can see when you look at some of the first items that have been completed, you're looking at these upcoming Drakes. LGD's like, well, we've already got 2. We want to play for these Drakes anyway. We want to 5v5 you. So when the next one spawns, Fnatic, if you're not prepared to fight us, well, good luck to you, because we're definitely going to look to 5v5.
Gia is going to force Bwipo away in that topside jungle. I will say, Vedius, with Bwipo with the Blade of the Ruin King, if there's anything I've learned from watching a copious amount of anime, it's if someone models himself only on punching, he's usually pretty strong. I look at people like Saitama, you know, all you need to do is punch to kill someone, you're usually pretty overpowered, and that is exactly what Set can be in this game, but needs to be able to...
I think he's freezing top lane as well. I think so.
Well, I'm sure we'll have a look at it at some point. For now, we are focused more on the fact that LGD are setting up Peanut down towards this bottom side. There's a Gromp with a stack available for him. It would be his 3rd mark of the game, but this control ward means that he cannot go any further.
Blue buff also going to be given over to Xie. The Infernal map is actually going to be quite interesting as well. Something that Ender often talks about is how things like the mountain map can actually change a lot. Ooh, hang on, ultimate here. Nemesis, no flash.
No flash. Peanut's going to pop the Lamb's Respite, and there is the kill. Shut down onto Nemesis. Purely through CS, he had acquired a bounty, and Peanut was very happy to take that.
Really good collapse there from LGD. They're able to catch Nemesis out of position, knowing that he does not have the flash. And that was just Long Jing being in a situation where he could move and help the rest of his team. So even though Bwipo is setting up a huge wave up towards the top side of the map, they're actually not going to get a huge amount off the back of it. So nice play there from LGD. Will get themselves their first kill of the game, and then get themselves a little bit more gold into their back pockets.
It's one of those things where LGD are, as you say, slightly behind in gold, but the 2,000 gold right now really doesn't matter too much. Langjing has finished his Sunfire Cape now. Proto Belt is complete on Xie. Essence Reaver complete on Kramer as the top laners have a little bit of a laugh with their emote selection.
So there is, of course, a bit of history between RNG and Fnatic, for those that are unfamiliar. Langjing, former RNG player. And yeah, so he's just kind of referencing like, hey, remember last time? Well, actually, Fnatic won the last time.
Yeah.
But in any case, there's a lot of history between those two organizations, so a bit of a cool flash there coming out from Longjing.
And a lot of history between the two regions as well, especially over the last couple of World Championships. Like LPL and LEC have been 2 regions battling to see who is the supreme leader of the world, and at the moment, it's very much the LPL.
Yep, of course, LPL currently 1-1 on the day. Europe the same, with Rogue losing to Damwon, and G2 getting that big win over Sunny. Meanwhile, JDG getting a massive win versus PSG, extremely dominating, but it seems that the LPL 4th seed and the European 2nd seed currently very close. But I say close, right now the map state feels quite close, but of course that is not represented in the gold. Fnatic very healthily in the lead. A lot of that coming off the back of the top lane and jungle differences.
And a lot of it comes down to this next fight as well. If we see Fnatic coming up towards this dragon fight, trying to make sure LGD can't get to Soul Point and just demolishing because of their extra gold, because of their extra items, that's when you really see this game explode for Fnatic.
Exactly that, Medic, and I'm glad you set it up, because you'll notice 50 seconds until the Drake. We expect to see Bwipo go back to base. Look at the inventories. Control ward, control ward, control ward, control ward. Come on, Bwipo, lock it in. Give me that control ward. Give me number 5. He's not going to do
No,
it.
Magic
We'll
Man is
grab
more important.
the sweeper, though.
Yep.
So 3 sweepers. They've also got the Rift Herald. Fnatic is clearly saying, we're ready to fight for this objective. They're fighting for mid-priority right now. Selfmade goes in.
Dives in onto Mark, who's just going to use the dredge line to get himself to safety. Wolf goes down as Peanut forces Hillisang and Selfmade away. But this is what Fnatic wanted to do. All they're looking for is control of the river. That's all they really want out of this. And now with Bwipo joining up with the team, Lungxing would have to TP into this fight. He's currently going back to base. We'll look to get those home guards in.
But look at these deep flank wards that LGD have set up right behind Fnatic's layer. This means that there are opportunities for Longxing and GA to get involved. Wait, GA's just going to TP into the mid lane.
Into mid lane.
Wait, no! All right, but wait, maybe those wards are actually just blue wards. Maybe I'm wrong.
They could be Farsight Automation.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, maybe that's what they are, and they actually weren't TP wards, so I could be incorrect there. But I thought that was a great opportunity for them to flank. Either way, both teams setting up right now. Bot wave is pushing in favor of Fnatic. I think the Fnatic should drop this Rift Herald in mid to create that extra point of pressure right now because, oh, they're actually just going to start this one off. Here we go, man.
Infernal Dragon has been started. Bwipo on the front line. Mark's going to hook him up. Here comes the Curtain Call. Bwipo with the Haymaker. Showstopper onto the back, trying to catch out Mark. Bwipo is almost down as he falls. Peanut gets the kill. The Infernal Dragon does go over to Selfmade. Here's the call to the Force God though, as Zia uses the Chrono Bait to get back, and there's another hook, and there's another kill. Selfmade goes down. Fnatic get the Dragon, but they get swept away in the river.
Yeah, beautiful punish there from LGD. They recognize that Bwipo is out of position, and they can get a collapse. The chain CC was flawless, and they're able to get themselves 2 kills. Of course, Selfmade with no flash, recognizing that he's the last one in the pit, makes it very easy for them, and now they're going to steal away some jungle camps. The Raptors are going to go, the Gromp is going to go. That's another mark for the Kindred. They may even be able to steal away the blue buff, but they might not want to overstay their welcome. So here we're going to get a look back at Bwipo getting caught out. He thinks he has the lantern for safety, but knock-up into collapse. You also have so many control wards on top of the lantern. Bwipo thinks that he can get that kill onto Kramer, but not quite enough. The heal comes through from him. And then Selfmade, of course, the ultimate lands on, and he does not have any flash. So, really good collapse there from LGD. They're immediately going to close the gold gap. And you can see now, 31k to 31k. And this is what we were talking about, though. LGD don't care about the early deficit that they found themselves in. They knew that a lot of their draft advantages were going to come when these 5v5s started to take place. And I thought that they wouldn't be able to play front to back, but to be fair, they're able to find that quick pick, and they're able to convert it into something big. So now the game has suddenly equalized, and we have an interesting game on our hands. Selfmade still with that Herald. We'll see what he does with it.
Looks like he's going to path his way towards the mid lane, but once again, we see that just this vision from LGD just poking its eyes into the Fnatic jungle. They know that Selfmade was there. They know he was at his Razor Beaks. Even the control ward wasn't able to spot out the ward that LGD had put down. Rift Herald will go down in the mid lane, and Fnatic immediately just abandon it. They're like, hey mate, get a charge in please, Shelly. And it will only get in the one. So the tower still stands in the mid lane, whereas LGD have already raised the mid lane tower of Fnatic to the ground.
Yeah, and right now, it's just going to be a lot of trying to steal away jungle camps, fighting for vision, controlling over waves. You can see that Bwipo is going to push in another top lane wave, and then he's likely going to look to reset because Fnatic are going to start transitioning their pressure elsewhere. That tier 1 tower in the bot lane is still up, along with the tier 1 in the mid, which means that LGD is in a slightly more favorable power position. But you would imagine that those are the objectives that Fnatic are looking to secure. But you'll notice that Nemesis does not have the support from his team, so he can't overextend on the bot side of the map. He doesn't quite know where the Echo is either, which means that he's going to be forced to disengage. And LGD just kind of sitting comfortably right now, waiting for the next dragon to spawn.
Yeah, only 400 gold the difference between the teams. LGD in a very strong spot, known for their team fighting in the LPL. Let's Hillisang pokes his head into the LGD jungle. They're
starting this.
Okie doke. Fnatic, they did it yesterday against TSM. This one will go down quickly. Set can punch it incredibly rapidly, but it's already down to 7,000 HP. Now Lungxing stepping forward. Selfmade's going to dive out of the back of the pit or even take the lantern. And that felt like Fnatic just being like, hey guys, you ordered this? You're gonna check? Just in case. Just in case LGD didn't
It's
go.
one of those things where there's... Oh, hang on, Longxing. Good sidestep.
Bwipo's looking for him here, though. The curtain call comes down, and Lungxing is not the target you really want to be hitting with those consecutive shots.
No, but he will be able to walk away from that. Didn't have the flash, but didn't really need it anyway. In any case, the point of that Baron was to say, hey, we have just cleared out all of the Baron vision. We're going to check how aware you are of the potential Baron take. They don't really lose anything for starting that Baron because there's no objectives to play for. And if it works out, then they end up getting a Baron. So it's very much just a quick test to be like, can you stop us from doing a Baron? Oh, okay, you can. Okay, fair enough. Okay, we respect that, and we will back away and disengage.
Sometimes you just got to brain check your opponents. Like,
Yep.
your brain's awake right now? You are alive?
Exactly.
You understand what we could do? And LGD very aware of the danger, probably having watched Fnatic do almost exactly the same thing to TSM yesterday. And now we'll see exactly where we are in terms of items, Vedius. Only 300 gold between the two teams. Lichbane now complete on Xie alongside the Proto Belt. And Infinity Edge Essence Reaver here for Kramer.
Looks like a Void Staff also going to come out from Nemesis very early on. Wants a little bit more magic penetration alongside the Luden's Echo, but we're kind of hitting 2 items for everyone. And, you know, LGD only getting stronger. The fact that Kramer has those 2 items is going to be deadly. And notice that Kramer level 13 right now to the level 11 of Reckless. So that is a very strong Misfortune that's had a lot of resources funneled into her. And is going to be very scary as we approach these upcoming team fights. And you know, we've been talking about it a lot. Even though Fnatic have been able to find some early game gold leads, early game advantages, at the end of the day, LGD only care about the 5v5. They're grouping up for it now. They have the bot wave push in. Here lands the hook.
Submate's going to get hooked. There is Mark so low. Almost goes down. Gets the gargoyles off just in time. Now Submate has fallen as well. Whipple going to do what he can with the showstopper to pull Langjing forward. There's the base breaker as well into the scatter of the week, but the Lamb's Respite just in time for Peanut. Bullet time comes out from Kramer as they try and open up. Hillisang dived on by Xie, and now it's only Nemesis and Reckless left alive in a 2v3. Langjing's just going to back away. The Dragon is up in a second's time, and LGD will turn their eyes towards the Inferno.
Wow, crazy team fight that ends up going in the favor of LGD once again. That ultimate from Peanut was so clutch, mitigating so much of the burst damage that came out from Nemesis and Bwipo. If he had not done that, that fight could have gone very easily in the favor of Fnatic, so huge props to him because this is also going to guarantee them their 3rd Drake of the game. LGD now finally sitting at that gold lead where they have been behind pretty much the entire game.
Have another look at this, because remember, Selfmade does not have Flash.
So in this Axe replay, you'll notice that, as you rightly said, no Flash sitting on top of the Graves does end up getting punished for it. Bwipo, though, on the backline, looks like they're going to execute him, but then the ultimate comes through from Nemesis as well. If he'd used that on someone like Langjing or Xie, I think that it could have been so much better, but he was not expecting that ulti to come through from Peanut, and that's really what shifted the fight. So huge props to Peanut for being able to keep him alive. But then, you know, Bwipo's going to have to be mindful of how he uses that ultimate in the future and, like, thinking more about it. That's probably why he picked the set. Knowing that the Kindred was on the other team, you have that ability to drag people out of the Kindred ultimate to try and find that execute. And I think he's going to have to hold on to it a little bit longer in future fights.
It's the same reason you see picks like the Gragas or the Lee Sin into the Kindred. You want to disrupt the ability for Kindred to get her ult off effectively. But as you say, LGD are about 1,000 gold in the lead here, Vedius, and only getting stronger as the minutes go off. Langjing, already level 14, has those ornaments, has those upgrades available. And we'll start to see them come out on items like the Infinity Edge that is sitting in Kramer's inventory. Fnatic trying to get control over the Baron once again. 3.5 minutes before the next Dragon means that this is really the key point of contest for both these teams.
It certainly is. Looking at some of the summoners that are available, pretty much everyone is good except for Nemesis and Hillisang. No flashes on them, which means that LGD actually probably going to be feeling even more confident in the upcoming fight. The fact that Kramer will be able to flash away from anyone trying to dive on top of him is definitely a good position for LGD to be in.
And what I love about this game, Betty, is firstly, it's close, which makes it exciting, right? Yeah. And secondly, if LGD end up winning this, think about how much closer the bottom of this group is. Gen G, probably the favorites to win the group, right? 2-0, but then you have Fnatic at 1-1, LGD at 1-1, and TSM only just a win behind them then. It makes this so much more exciting in the battle for second place in a group that a lot of people were saying could go anyone's way, right? If anyone has a good day, any one of the teams in this group could take the win.
Certainly is the case. And LGD showcasing, even though they had a rough play-ins, they can still go toe-to-toe with some of the world's best. Now, kind of bringing us back into the game, you'll notice that there aren't really any objectives to play for outside of the Baron. Neither team really wants to commit to that right now. If either team was to commit to it, it would be LGD to try and force that 5v5 that they're looking for, but there are a lot of risks associated with that. Meanwhile, Xie is continuing to sit in a side lane, currently level 16. Notice that Kramer also level 14, and the level advantages that LGD currently have are huge in these upcoming fights. Reckless slowly starting to close the gap, hitting that 13 mark, but still a little bit behind in the items. Hasn't completed his 3rd item yet, while Peanut's looking to try and steal away some camps.
Or just hit the blast camp.
Also just hit the blast camp.
Yeah. Of course, may not have known that the Gromp was down, so wasn't able to steal anything away right there. I have been being updated on the mark situation. Last update I got, it was 3 marks on Kindred. I believe he's picked up 1 more since then, but I will check in just a moment's time as we see once again both the teams just setting up in this mid lane. It is still 3, actually, Vedius. So yet to see Peanut really unleash the full power of this Kindred, but he's been doing a very good job considering he hasn't been able to get to that 4 mark point.
Well, comfort pick for him, that's for sure. Bwipo going to spot people out. And this is where we see the Dragon Dance start once again. So GA can just sit top lane, and he will continue to push. Actually, just going to reset for the time being. Meanwhile, Fnatic actually investing towards the top side. They may look to try and do a trade. Baron for the Dragon Soul. Of course, very risky, because the amount of damage that the Dragon Soul gives is extremely potent. There's that 4th mark though that you were talking about for Peanut. And there it comes through on the graphics. So he's going to have slightly longer range. Pretty common though in pro play, I would say. But yeah, I think LGD's though still very favored. They're pushing in the bot wave. They still have a lot of vision in the river that Fnatic is now forced to clear out. I'm looking to see when Mark is going to reset. He still actually has plenty of wards in his inventory. LSang looking for the pick.
Isn't going to be able to find it just quite yet. There are 3 items now on Kramer. He's got the Rapid Fire Cannon alongside the Infinity Edge upgraded by Ornn, the Essence Reaver, and the Executioner. So Kramer actually, because of the Strut passive from MF, has decided he doesn't need level 2 boots. He's been sitting on these boots of speed the entire game. And it means he just hits these item points that little bit sooner than Reckless does. Bwipo on the front line here. Langjing stepping forward into darkness. Fnatic have control of this small pocket of vision in the river. Of course, the Scuttle Crab behind, giving LGD just that little bit of information as to where exactly Fnatic are. And LGD will gain mid lane priority. Hook's going to land onto Mark. There's the Gargoyles. Bwipo knocked up with the depth charge. Call of the Forge God available for Langjing. Showstopper's going to pull him back, and here comes the curtain call. Mark already down. Peanut diving off towards the backside. The unleashed power used on GA. And Langjing will flash away. LGD can look for the re-engage here. They've got the bullet time, but instead they say, okay, it's not a soul for you yet. You just have 2 Infernal Dragons, and they'll give it up to Fnatic.
Wow, so the Peanut ultimate didn't even come through that time around. He wasn't able to keep Mark alive, and LGD end up falling short in the team fight. Ooh, Hylissang looking for Kramer. Going to be able to disengage from that one, though. Fnatic, I'm surprised they were able to come out ahead in that fight, and they were the actual ones to instigate it. They looked for a fight before the objective was even started, but a lot of farm was lost on a side lane. So while all this was going on, Fnatic was just clumped in the river. Meanwhile, GA was still pushing mid waves. He's going to catch another wave top right now. And like, a lot of farm was being lost, but here we see like the initiation onto Mark. Notice that 3 members are actually zoned by this smoke screen coming out from Selfmade. They're also afraid of Nemesis sitting off on this flank. And then so many members just immediately flash away. The Kindred ultimate never comes through because he's worried that if he stays in it, he's just going to bait his team.
Also, Hylissang was just about to hook him, so he had to flash away and then realized that he didn't need to use the ultimate because he was already out of the fight. So what I did like from Fnatic there was the layering of CC as GA tries to dive onto Hylissang, still has the chrono break, just dives his way all the way back to the river, and LGD gained total control of this Baron side of the river.
Oof, okay. Here comes the Death Crown for Xie. He's going to, he's already completed that item now, level 17. You can see how big that shield is, and it's going to be upgraded because Langjing has just hit level 16 as well. So those two need to meet up, get that upgrade onto Xie's back pocket, and he's now going to be a massive threat in the upcoming fights. Of course, this game is going to continue to be delayed because the Drakes keep getting taken by Fnatic. But I think the longer this game goes on, it only gets harder, really, for Fnatic. I feel that it's going to be harder for Reckless to kill this front line of the Ornn relative to the composition that Kramer has to play against. Mark is only going to get tankier as the game goes on. Xie is only going to do more damage. And I think that Fnatic, what they're largely relying on is finding these picks at the start of each fight, just like they did with Mark in that last one. They have a lot of single target bursts with champions like the Syndra, and they have a lot of chain CC with things like the Jin W, the Hook, of course the Syndra stun as well. But I think if they just play the straight-up front-to-back 5v5, it's not going to be great for Fnatic.
Hylissang looking for the hook. We'll just walk out of the Power Law Convergence. I mean, Fnatic, there's a reason the Fnatic bush is named after them. They have historically been very good at sitting in a bush and waiting and trying to catch someone. Right now, Bwipo is still pushing in the bottom lane by himself. Langjing is on his way to answer this. Bwipo a level down in this matchup now. We haven't seen that pure power that they invested into Bwipo early on really translate into much more as of yet. He's been strong in the team fights. Perhaps Fnatic realizing that he would need to be their frontline, so would need some extra items. So decided to get him a little bit more gold, but he hasn't been able to purely win this side lane by himself.
Oh, look at LGD though, they're kind of threatening a collapse. Remember that Kramer can rotate from lane to lane very quickly, especially now that he's upgraded the boots. Also got himself the Executioner's Falling Blade. Yep. God, I have a really bad history with that. The name of that, yeah.
Oh, Hook comes out here onto Selfmade. There's no flash on this Graves. TP going to be used. There is the Lantern. Call of the Forge God comes in from Lanjing, lands it even through the smoke screen. Bwipo's on the back line, but he's all on his lonesome, and there is the dredge line shut down onto Bwipo. And now Fnatic have to retreat back into their own jungle. LGD find a pick, don't really lose too much health at all. Nemesis is the next target here for GA, but Selfmade got caught out, and it meant that LGD can now start up this bound.
Yeah, excellent pick, and again, the lack of flash. Oh, but that's huge as well!
Unleashed power, it isn't quite enough as the chrono break comes out from GA. Rekkles trying to open up, GA no longer has an ultimate. Now Selfmade can rejoin this fight, can just dash across this wall to try and get over towards the Baron, but LGD actually just gonna disengage. Curtains open from Rekkles as he realizes LGD have walked away.
Wow, I'm surprised that LGD actually chose to disengage off of that, because Bwipo had no teleport. So I think that they would have been in a numbers advantage, but they recognized that they only had the MF ultimate. Oh, they also had Peanut. Yeah, I'm surprised.
Yep.
I thought that they could have committed to that Baron, honestly. But finding that pick onto Selfmade is really where everything started for LGD. Notice, again, the lack of flash can be so devastating. Your positioning is so important, and then Bwipo finds himself in a 1 versus 4 that he just cannot get out of. He does not have the flash to disengage, and he recognizes the disadvantaged position that he puts himself in, but then it's Nemesis that finds that pick onto GA, throws the ultimate down, forces GA to ulti, and then immediately LGD is forced to retreat. The damage on your screen right now you can see from Nemesis.
With 20 seconds left on the next Dragon spawn, we once again see both the teams deciding to fight in this bottom side river. Last time it was Fnatic who came out on top. This time, LGD once again will be looking for that Infernal Soul. Fnatic, though, if they get this, would only be 1 dragon away from a quad Infernal Soul. And LGD, well, they definitely want to stop that from happening. Scuttle Crab once again acquired for them. Selfmade aggroes the dragon. It raises from its slumber into the river itself as LGD looking to step forward. No real vision control here for Fnatic as LGD call on the Forge God. Showstopper used on Lanjing from Bwipo from the side. Nemesis trying to do what he can. The hook goes down onto Mark, but here comes GA, and there go Fnatic! Rekkles tries to do what he can, but GA is chasing him down. Infernal Soul LGD, only Selfmade left alive, and he won't be for much longer. LGD are on the hunt, and it's a triple for GA.
GA with the perfect flank onto the backline as Fnatic chose to go for the engage as Lanjing throws out the ultimate. The idea from Bwipo was to stop Lanjing from getting the second proc of that ulti off, but he ends up just making it easy for Kramer and GA to play the fight that they want. They get the Dragon Soul, and now the Nexus is in their eyes.
This might just be it. LGD from 1 and 3 in play-ins group. They have come alive here in the World's Group stage. And what a group this is gonna be. LGD pick up their first win in groups.
This game was all about the Dragons. Even though Fnatic found themselves with that early gold advantage, LGD were not concerned. They kept composed, they didn't try to overforce anything, and they just waited for these neutral objectives where they were just consistently coming out ahead in the 5v5s. There were definitely windows where Fnatic found a couple of good picks, they found a couple of good opportunities, but then in that final fight, everything just crumbled. LGD were not afraid to force the engage. They get a really good Ornn ultimate off that baits Bwipo into using his ulti very early, which means the backline wasn't threatened. And then, of course, we got to see Xie just run rampant on the entire Fnatic lineup.
That flank was just dirty from Xie. Absolutely great stuff. We saw, you know, people just got assassinated. Nemesis wasn't able to even move. And we saw exactly the power of the Echo into the Syndra matchup and the power of LGD. And it just makes me more excited for this group, I'll be honest. Like, anyone can go through. Gen G 2-0, but then you have LGD and Fnatic at 1-on-1. TS